Donald Trump's ex-vice president, Mike Pence, is officially challenging his former boss by formally entering the 2024 presidential race. Intrigued? Probably not, because it's Mike Pence, but pretend you are, hit that like and subscribe, and enjoy the video. All right, folks, it seems like with each passing day, we have a new entrant into the 2024 presidential race, particularly on the Republican side, competing against Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. As a matter of fact, I think in the last 36 hours, we had two relatively big names, enter the field to compete against Trump and DeSantis. And in this video, we're going to talk about Mike Pence, by far the most vanilla of all the candidates. Probably, even more so than DeSantis, I think. He's even less controversial and less interesting than DeSantis. But he was Trump's former vice president. He was at one point the second highest ranking person in the federal government, so I guess we got to talk about it. Now, Mike Pence, as you may or may not recall, the saltine cracker of American politics, and again, in terms of just how bland he is, he was a religious conservative, the former governor of Indiana, and Donald Trump's vice president. Now, when you compare these two men, you could not imagine a starker contrast between, the two leads of the executive branch. So on the one hand, you have Donald Trump, who is this unprincipled, uncouth, malignant narcissist who's very thin-skinned. He's a serial philanderer. He's had multiple affairs. And basically, Trump is the embodiment of unchristian-like behavior in terms of the values that Christ espoused in the New Testament. It's on one hand. Then on the other hand, you again have Mike Pence, who, again, is devoutly religious, both a social and fiscal conservative in his estimation, somebody who is quiet, somebody who is a thoughtful speaker, and is not boisterous at all. So in terms of temperament, in terms of principle, all these things, these two men could not be further apart. And it very often put Pence in awkward positions when he would have to defend or deflect from Trump's behavior, given that, people would credibly accuse Pence of being a hypocrite, given that he is subordinating himself to a man who defies virtually every principle that Pence seems to stand for or claims to stand for. And people were right to call him out for his hypocrisy, by the way. But anyway, he is now officially entering the 2024 presidential race, competing against his former boss. We're going to play at 1.25 speed because there's absolutely no way, it's under 3 minutes, but there's absolutely no way any of us has the attention span to sit through this in its natural speed. I want to play Mike Pence's announcement video, and then we're going to break it down. Okay, so prepare yourselves.
The land of opportunity, beacon of democracy, the shining city on the hill, land of the free, home of the brave, the United States of America. As a son of the heartland, grandson of an Irish immigrant, those aren't just words. My family has lived the American dream. I had the great honor to serve in Congress, as governor, and as your vice president. And I'll always be proud of the progress we made together for a stronger, more prosperous America. But today, our country's in a lot of trouble. President Joe Biden and the radical left have weakened America at home and abroad. The American dream is being crushed under runaway inflation. Wages are dropping. Recession is looming. Our southern border is under siege, and the enemies of freedom are on the march around the world. And worse still, timeless American values are under assault as never before.
So, a couple of things. We just might as well start breaking this down piece by piece. The idea that President Biden is part of the radical left is absurd, right? Again, relatively progressive president in terms of his administration, but Joe Biden himself, in terms of natural inclination and how he conducts himself on a day-to-day basis, pretty damn moderate. That's unquestionable. In terms of the inflation, well, the inflation is a global phenomenon, not controlled by the president, and it also began thanks to COVID-era economic consequences that Mike Pence and Donald Trump helped mismanage. So maybe if they'd done a better job curtailing COVID, being honest with the American public about it, supporting the science, et cetera, and so forth, maybe inflation wouldn't be as nearly as big of an issue. And by the way, the COVID-era spending did not begin under Joe Biden. It began under Donald Trump with two major bipartisan bills that were in the trillions of dollars, as well as the $2 trillion tax cut that Trump added to the national debt. So this idea that COVID inflation just spontaneously began under Biden and Biden himself is solely responsible for it's absolutely not true. These are all holdover effects from the Trump-Pence administration. I'll also point out he tried to, with the images here, indict Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan by showing planes leaving the tarmac with people running behind. It was Trump who set the stage for the Afghanistan withdrawal by, giving the Taliban whatever they wanted, getting no concessions from the Taliban in return, reducing troop presence and materiel as well, basically handing Biden a situation of utter chaos with very limited resources and a commitment to the Taliban. So the fact that Biden was able to get it done under those circumstances, if you want to complain about the circumstances, well, that's on Pence and Pence's former boss, Donald Trump.
We're better than this. We can turn this country around, but different times call for different leadership. Today, our party and our country need a leader that'll appeal, as Lincoln said, to the better angels of our nature. I have long believed to whom much is given, much will be required. My family and I have been blessed beyond measure with opportunities to serve this nation, and it'd be easy to stay on the sidelines. But that's not how I was raised. That's why today, before God and my family, I'm announcing I'm running for President of the United States. We can bring this country back. We can defend our nation and secure our border. We can revive our economy and put our nation back on a path to a balanced budget, defend our liberties, and give America a new beginning for life. President Reagan described us as a shining city on the hill. And above all, he called on Americans to renew optimism and believe in themselves again, to believe in each other. Every time our nation is...
I'll also point out, in terms of balancing a budget, the conservative movement in the United States and the Republican Party in particular have absolutely no ground on which to stand. The Republican Party hasn't balanced a budget since like Dwight Eisenhower, decades ago. The last time we've had a balanced budget was under a Democratic leader, President Clinton. Under the Trump-Pence administration, 25% of the nation's debt was added, nearly $8 trillion. This man and the administration he represented had absolutely no sense of fiscal responsibility. The deficit spent each of the 4 years Trump and Pence were in office. He has no ground to stand on, no record of which to speak. He is an absolute hypocrite, and we should make fun of him for it. Let's continue.
Produce leadership that has called upon this country to do hard things. The American people have always risen to the challenge, and we will again. We just need government as good as our people to do it. I believe in the American people, and I have faith. God is not done with America yet, and together we can bring this country back, and the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
So it goes without saying that former Vice President Pence stands absolutely no chance. He is not what the Republican Party wants in terms of temperament. Listen, there's no doubt that Pence is intelligent. He performed very well, for example, to whatever extent this matters to you, in his debate against then candidate Kamala Harris during the vice presidential debate. He's certainly much more intelligent and measured than Donald Trump. There's no question about these things. But at the end of the day, he is simply out of touch with what the Republican Party wants. The Republican Party doesn't want a Christ-like figure in terms of somebody who embodies or tries to emulate Christian values, to whatever extent Mike Pence does that at all. He certainly does more than Trump, right? And that would be his claim. Listen, I'm a devout, pious man of even temperament and optimistic and all these things. That's not what the Republican Party wants. That's not what they consider to be strong. They consider somebody like Trump, again, a malignant narcissist, a thin-skinned person who can't handle criticism of any nature, somebody who says one thing on Monday and a different thing on Tuesday. That is what the Republican Party views as strength. And Mike Pence helped aid and abet it by lending whatever credibility he has, spiritually or personally, to Donald Trump. You'll also note in that ad, he is falling into the same damn trap that all the other Republicans. I don't even know if you call it a trap. Perhaps it's an inevitability, but he's falling into the same situation, the same quagmire that DeSantis has fallen into, that Nikki Haley's fallen into, Tim Scott, et cetera, and so forth, and that he doesn't even address Trump at all. He doesn't even try to distinguish himself from Trump. It's all about Biden, Biden, Biden. Well, to get to Biden, you have to win the primary. And Trump is your primary obstacle, pun intended, in the primary. So I'll also point out that some people might be inclined to give Pence some credit. Some centrists or whatever might be inclined to give Pence credit because when it came time to certify then President-elect Joe Biden's victory, Pence did the right thing. Pence doesn't deserve beatification for that. He should not be lionized or beatified for not overthrowing the republic that he took an oath to protect and claims to love. Right? That's like not kicking a puppy while walking down the street. You don't get a gold star for that. It's like not like stealing candy from a baby and then shoving the stroller, into traffic, you don't get credit for that. Pence did the absolute bare minimum. And by the way, if you read any of his memoirs, if you read any of the reporting about it, what you find is that Pence was agonized by the decision. Yes, he was consistent, there's no doubt about it, but he was agonized. He was looking for an opportunity to help Trump, right? He was looking for he consulted scholar after scholar after scholar instead of doing what was plainly obvious, that a vice president just doesn't have the unilateral authority to just decide the outcome, the victor of a presidential election. That's self-evidently true. You shouldn't have to consult with legal scholars to do it. That shouldn't even require a phone call. Hey, do you, Mr. Vice President, have the authority to disregard the results of the Electoral College and the popular vote and just decide the president yourself? No, obviously not. But that's not where the discussion ended with Pence. He, consulted all kinds of Republicans and constitutional scholars. He said he had to pray over it, all these things. This was a man who was perilously close to temptation to overthrow the republic. He gets no credit for that. So he does not, in my opinion, have the character, the strength, the backbone to become president, because if he did, he would be more honest, which is what one of the values that Christ valued above all others. And say, actually, as much as I disagree with Joe Biden, it's actually Donald Trump who's the problem, and we need to reclaim the Republican Party from Donald Trump. But he doesn't even have the integrity or the strength of character to do that. So this is almost certainly a non-starter, and I look forward to many, 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 many months of making fun of Mike Pence, as he deserves. And I'm sure Trump will pitch in on that as well.